Hello crafty friends, Shana from ShanoukiArt. I will be working in my magazine art journal today. Thank you to all of those who commented in the previous video about stapling the spine to secure the pages. I was doing it a bit wrong, so thank you for the advice. I was using an open stapler, but I was doing it directly onto a hard surface. After your comments, I realized I needed something soft and spongy, so I have this piece of foam which I'm going to place underneath, and then I'm going to staple. That didn't work. This stapler is rubbish. Let me get the one that actually works. I've stapled twice, and then once I turn it over, the little pointy bits of the staple are sticking straight up, and I'm going to use a piece of metal to press those down. Sometimes the staples are soft enough you can just press them down with your fingers. This one, there's hardly any of the staple actually sticking out because the book is quite thick, so I needed a tool to help me with that. And to tidy all that up so we don't have any kind of metal sticking out or showing, I'm going to add a piece of washi tape down the spine. I did find this one that suits the color really well, and I'm going to add that down the spine. Although the washi tape is sticky, I do want it to last long and not peel off, so I'm going to add some Mod Podge underneath as an additional adhesive to make it really secure. I'm going to be using this book a lot, opening it and closing it a lot, so I want something a bit robust. I'm pressing that down well over the wet Mod Podge, and then I'm going to leave it to dry for a few hours before I trim off the excess washi tape. Okay, the cover is now finally complete and secure. I'm going to start working inside the journal. I have decided that I am going to add a piece of masking tape down the center of each page when I work on it. This is for extra stability, additional texture, and prevents paint pooling inside. I have literally gathered just a whole bunch of random stuff that was on my desk when I did a tidy up. I have no idea what I'm doing yet. I'm just going to start sticking and let the page take me on a journey. The page on the right is mainly text, so I can let some of that shine through. I'm going to add this piece of brown paper, which is actually vintage dress pattern paper. It's slightly transparent, some of that text will shine through. I'm adding this down with some Mod Podge, and then I'm adding Mod Podge over the top just to waterproof it, to allow me to add more color on top if I decide to. I have these small crosses that I created with some acrylic paint in my fine tip applicator bottle when I was making some collage papers. I'm going to stick a piece of that on the corner. You'll notice I've left the spiral page edge on the white paper on the right sticking out, and I've also left the brown paper overspilling on the top and the bottom. I'm not going to trim that off. I do like that sort of extra over the page, because I like things to be quite organic, but if you like a neater look, of course you can trim that off. I just love pages that overspill and hang out of the book. Sticking down an old book page on the left to cover up most of that magazine paper, and then I have this piece of playing card that's from my ArtStacks kit. Link will be in the description box below. I'm going to add that in the corner, and as you can see, the colors I've sort of chosen are going towards the vintages and the black and white. Unintentional, I was just adding what I liked and what was in front of me, but this is how I say let the page lead you. It doesn't have to always be pre-decided. That's all the collaging I'm going to add for now. I'm now going to go in with my white gesso, and I'm going to fill in all the other magazine pages that are in the background, and I'm also going to soften the collage papers that I've added, going over the edges to blend them in, and going over the text parts just to lighten everything up. This helps push it into the back. If you add too much gesso while the gesso is wet, you can use a baby wipe to wipe some off or to help with blending. I concentrate mostly on the edges of each collage piece so it blends one into the other, and then I always lighten anything that's sort of text or too bold. If you leave it too bright or too loud, I feel then there is no dimension to the piece. You do need something in the background and something in the foreground. As I was working, I realized the page is quite thin. I am going to stick two together using my glue stick. I'm going to add a few more pieces of masking tape. This is merely just for additional texture. I'm now going to add some stenciling using this stencil from Stamperia and my texture paste with a palette knife. I'm going to press some of that through, not everywhere. I'm going to concentrate mainly on the brown area of the tissue paper, and I will put a small amount on the top left just to create some balance. Wiping off any chunky bits from the page edge, I'm then going to dry this all really well. Because vintage colors and turquoise are my favorite combination, I'm going to add some turquoise to the spread. I'm using my color burst powders in the turquoise color. It's one of my favorite ways to add color to a project. So I sprinkle some of the powders on and then I spray with water, and I also use a wet paintbrush and just allow that color to move in between the texture paste. I try not to control it too much. I let it do its own thing, and it creates some beautiful effects. Also adding a little bit of splatter, but it's all really random. I'm also going to add some stamping. I'm using black permanent ink and my script stamp. Once the ink is dry, if there's an area that you don't like that you've stamped, you can always cover that up with a little bit of gesso. Like here on the left, it's a bit too straight down the line. I don't like that. I wanted a bit more a rugged edge, so I'm just going to cover up a little bit of that with gesso. I'm not going to add much more to the background. I think the textures are enough and I don't want anything to get lost. I'm now going to work on my focal point. I'm going to add a few elements in like a cluster for my focal point. The circle that I'm using is a round that I've punched from some background paper I've made, and then I also have that black cross, which is also from some collage paper, and then I have a piece of spotty acetate. Not really visible, but it adds dimension. I want this one to be more defined, so I'm fussy cutting all the way around. I'm trying to see what else I can put behind. I want the round circle to pop a little bit. I decided to then go around the edge with the black watercolor pencil. I'm just dipping the point of the pencil in some water and then just going over the edge. This will help to add definition, and as you can see, it already pops more off the page. I like the placement of those three elements, so I'm going to staple everything together. I contemplated putting that focal point on the left on the whiter area, but I kept being pulled towards the right. Although the right is already quite busy, I just liked having my focal point there. I'm going to add a sentiment on the left. It is white text on black background, and it says, "Better an oops than a what if," which I think is pretty fitting for art journaling. I always say give it a go. I'm trying to see if a pop of color underneath my cluster will work on the right. I'm struggling to find something that I find pleasing to the eye. I'm going to go through a few different options. Sometimes you feel like your piece needs something, but you don't know exactly what. Just start trying different things, and eventually when the right thing comes along, you'll know it. I decided I needed more contrast, so I went with a black piece of background paper. I'm going to use a piece behind the cluster. I will attach that with a staple too. I'm just using a pair of pliers to press the staples flat. You don't want it to be too chunky when you attach it to the page. I'm finally happy with that. I'm going to add some clear craft glue and attach that to my page. I'm leaving the acetate to hang off the page a little bit. With my black fine liner pen, I'm going around my sentiment very roughly. I want it to look hand-drawn and doodle-like, just to make it stand out a little bit more. I want to add another of my circles. I just feel the entire layout needs something more. So I've punched those out. I'm just going to go around the blue with my fine liner pen, and then I'm going to edge around it with a watercolor pencil. At this point, I'm not sure if I'm going to use both, but I've just have them ready and I will see what I'm going to do with them. If you'd like to know how I made these, let me know in the comments below and I would be happy to make a quick video to show you. I'm really liking the one on the right. I want it at an angle from the top one and I want it hanging off the page. I'm not sure yet though about the other one. So the ones that we're sure of, let's glue those down before we change our mind. I then cleared the decks so I could get a full view of what the page looks like without any kind of confusion of different colors around the page. I did still want to maybe add that other circle. I did try it here and there. I even cut it in half. It just wasn't working and I decided to leave the page as is. Although I didn't add that circle, I felt it still needed something on the left, so I decided to add a little bit more turquoise splatter just to fill out some of that white. So what I've done is I've put some of my watercolor powder just onto my work surface. I've added some water and I'm just using my paintbrush to splatter that over some of the white. Using my fan paintbrush for some finer droplets, I always love splatter as a finishing touch. So much so that I'm going to add some white splatter too. I'm just going to cover up my sentiment with a scrap piece of paper so we don't get any paint on that. And then using my watered down white acrylic paint, I'm going to add a little bit of white splatter. A little difficult to see in the video, but it does add some definition to the final look. I really hope you enjoyed this video of me creating an art journal page in my magazine art journal. And I hope you were inspired to create one too. And why don't you give it a try using just stuff you have found on your desk after a cleanup. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so you're notified every time I upload new content. Thanks again for watching. Happy creating, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.